I wanted to play with this beautiful thing that happens in this space, which is you're thrust through the building from an urban space into the garden. As you get closer to something, you can pick up details, you pick up different scales. So things like the horizon line in this kind of broken image, or this idea of this image in debris, is quite clear from here. But when you're up close, you'll see things like hands, you'll see things like tiny birds. We're seeing things move all the time around us. So I want to do things that are super physical and our eyes can only do. One thing you might notice is that there's actually a photograph of this location in the painting. You can even mark it by time because you can see the piece that was in the garden when this photograph was taken. So when your eye slips off that edge of the torn paper, you fall from a photograph into the real space. I named this piece, this sculpture, Cave Painting, because I wanted to think about how painting and sculpture have always been merged. So this is really, in my mind, about how do you break apart an image into sculptural space and sort of see how it's being made. The piece is actually, it's torn. It's 3 layers of an actual painting that's been separated and then torn by hand. So I was also interested in how, using air as a sculptural element here rather than like stone and rock, and how you can make things porous. I wanted the ultimate quality to be this kind of just barely hanging on, so that the viewer is doing some of the work of putting together the image. So you can actually see how it's made, it falls apart. And the objects on the floor are all doing work, they're tools. Another theme that sort of runs through, I think, all 3 pieces is this idea that I've been interested in not depicting what landscape looks like, but to actually talk more about how landscape behaves. I wanted to create a piece where the length of the space was almost nested, that you would feel like there was almost an arena where you had 2 things going on at the same time, and you were in the middle, and you were negotiating this. So to break down the idea, very traditional idea of a sculpture, of an object that you walk around. When you come in here, you're in the round, and you're having to move, and you're having to pick up information yourselves. We've become so interested in what's outside of our eyes that we forget that we're storing so many images in our head. Some neurosciences make the argument, over 90% of the images we have in a day are actually interior images, whether it's dreams, hopes, memories. I'm more interested in sort of bringing images that we hold in our head actually into public space. And there's basically 2 different forms, where you have a large image that's very, very big, and that's also, you have to get back from them to be able to tell what they're doing, because each image actually acts like a pixel when it's large. So, and then it switches to this format where every single image is a unique image. So you're shifting from these kind of very close up to very far away images. This is sort of the chorus. This is the things caused to happen, where every image is different. And I think what happens is each time it comes on, you kind of tie yourself to a couple images, and the next time you tie yourself to a couple more. And right after a thing's caused to happen, there's almost always something that kind of washes it. So this is a wave. I always knew that I wanted to use this window almost like a screen. So it's like going to an underground terrarium or like an underground world, delve into this interior space. This is a great example of where everything in it is making something else. So it's an image-making system. The sculpture is making the shadows. It's also making the videos, but it's also being a sculpture. So it's a tree that actually is a timekeeper because it's over there, it's dead. Then it starts to bud, it gets bigger and bigger, and then it goes into fall and it dies. So it actually follows the seasons. The 3 found objects in this piece are tripod, which is doing its job being a tripod. There's a plein air, it's an actual bought off the shelf plein air painting stand, which I always love this idea of plein air, to paint in nature. And there were painters and sculptors who believe this idea of immersion in the environment and making the studio part of the environment. So this idea that there's maybe a moment in your mind where you start to merge the shadow with the place, you can feel like you're behind that, seeing the birds. And that's totally this idea of handing the viewer enough of the work to make that mixture.